IVM.
We get it. Life with a newborn can get crazy busy. It seems like with a toddler or a preschooler around, there's not enough time in the day to cook, clean, work, or even take a shower yourself. We could use all the help we need to get things done around the house throughout the day. But more and more experts are weighing in with concerns about how much time babies spend in quote unquote containers. Containers such as car seats, bouncers, chairs, and even slings. In this episode, we discuss the rising phenomenon that even has a name, the container baby syndrome, with Dr. Swati Popat Vats, the inspirational educator that has worked with toddlers and preschoolers for more than 3 decades now. Almost every job in the world requires training, except parenting.
You need to learn parenting on the job, and that can be really hard.
Here on Big Talk About Tiny Humans, we want to help you navigate the world of parenting better and make your lives a little bit easier.
Hi, I'm Meghna.
And hi, I'm Devishobha.
Every week, we bring you the best research on parenting,
Top tips from experts,
and actionable strategies to confront the numerous challenges that all parents and educators face.
So let's get started, shall we? As parents and caretakers of babies, we are constantly watching for those developmental milestones. We invest heavily in equipment and products that we perceive to be helpful to babies in their developmental journey. But what if the same products can cause the delay that we so dread in the development of our children? Today, we will talk about the container baby syndrome, a concerning phenomenon that's on the rise. But there's so much we can do about it. With us today is Dr. Swati Popat Vats, the inspirational director of Podar Happy Kids, the largest and the most successful play school chain in India. And she's also the person behind Podar Happy Kids, the highly acclaimed daycare chain. Dr. Watts, in her capacity as the president of Early Childhood Association of India, is also very active in ensuring that people from all walks of life come together for early childhood, as she deeply believes that it takes a village to raise a child. Dr. Watts is also the person behind India's College of Early Childhood Teacher Training called the Podar Institute of Education, and as the leader for Asia of the Nature Action Collaborator for Children, otherwise known as NACC, Dr. Watts works tirelessly to ensure that children in India grow up knowing the earth and learning to respect nature right from the start. She's also the national representative for India at the World Forum Foundation, which works for early childhood in 150 countries and whose mission is to promote an ongoing global exchange of ideas on the delivery of quality services for young children in diverse settings. Welcome to Big Talk About Tiny Humans podcast. Thank you very much, Dr. Watts, for being here. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you
to
so
have
much,
you.
Devi. Thank you so much for inviting me here and for taking up this wonderful cause, which can help so many parents.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for, honoring every request of mine. I'm so glad.
Always there for you. Always.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Watts, I would like to begin with, understanding what the container baby syndrome is and what is a common perception around it usually, because this is not something that parents are very aware of as I see it. But it is, like I said, it's a rising phenomenon. Why is it not known and why is it rising now?
It's amazing that it's a very old phenomena in the US and in many of the global countries. And the American Academy of Pediatricians has actually termed it as a syndrome, as a container baby syndrome. It's called the CBS. But in India, there is no record of container babies, maybe because our parenting styles were such that we never focused on putting babies into containers. Container baby, basically, as the name suggests, is that you are putting a child in something, a gadget, an equipment that contains the movement or controls the movement of the baby so that you feel more secure that the baby is not going to get hurt or the baby is not going to move away too much, and you are able to keep an eye on the child. So I think our traditional parenting practices never required us to put children into containers. But I think as the breakup of the joint family or many other socio changes which have happened in the Indian society, I think Indian parents have also started veering towards containing their babies. And they're also, the term is also called bucket babies, which means you're trying to put children into something that kind of inhibits their movement, inhibits their freedom. Of course, it is done from the point of view of two things: keeping them safe and controlling their movement.
Right. I think that was a great point you made, Dr. Watts, about traditional parenting not involving, restricting movement. Because I remember even as recent as my children, right, about even 10 years ago, I was advised by people at home to actually put them on the floor on a mat and just let them move around, right? So that's the traditional wisdom that gets carried on, right? And like you said, this is a more recent phenomenon because of the desire to control the movement of babies. And also, I think the pandemic probably has also added to this. Would you think so also?
Absolutely. So the survey we did basically because we were seeing recurring instances on social media, especially Facebook and Instagram, of people posting videos and photographs of their children contained in certain things like the bumbo seat or a high chair, and parents having conversations with them. They thought these are fun videos, but what we noticed in them was that the child was always stuck in one position so that the parent could get a better camera angle, etc. And these were all videos shared by parents about how they were taking care of the children during the pandemic. And what we noticed as a common factor in all these photographs and videos is that, oh my God, the children are being contained in something or the other, whether it's a playpen or it's a stroller or it's a car seat which they have brought in the house now so that the child is able to sit for longer periods of time, etc. So we noticed that during the pandemic, because everybody is locked up at home, they are having to do their work from home. No schools are open, daycares are not open. So the only way they could, I think, bring some semblance of control in children. Otherwise, you know how children are, they'll move around, they will tug at the wire, they will get entangled in all the Wi-Fi wires and computer wires that you've set up with so many people working from home. So I think that was a rising incidence of container babies during the pandemic, which was a cause for concern because not only are these children not allowed to go out because of the pandemic, but now even at home, their movement, their necessary movement is restricted.
Right. And also because the parents' movements themselves are restricted, and because of the busy work schedule and everything that parents have, I think it is definitely a contributing factor. And also, I think there is a common perception that I think this is not just for parents, but this happens for everybody and everything else. This thought that, whatever is happening is for someone else, not for me. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is probably the cause why, everything that happens to us is not getting the kind of reaction or the remedial action that, it should get.
On this note, let's take a break and come back.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. We're so excited to bring you our next podcast by our favorite Tamil storyteller, Kavita Jiva. Venvel Seni is the story of how the Tamil kings and kingdoms united to keep South India independent of Ashoka's rule. On The Habit Coach, Ashton speaks to psychiatrist and podcaster Dr. Fred Moss. They discuss ways to deal with discomfort and boredom. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita give us key highlights from the 2022 budget and discuss the success of audioware company Boat. On The Longest Constitution, Priya takes a look at how courts interpret cases of color blindness and maternity relief at the workplace. On Press Decode, Sarah Vagda and Prafula talk about China's media censorship and Bharat Pay's infamous co-founder Ashneer Grover. And on Pulyabazi, the hosts discuss how much the government spends on defense in their special series Ek Sawal Kahi Jawab. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any other platforms that you're listening to us, whether it's a rating, whether it's a review, it all helps. And do remember to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and HDFC Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back. So how real do you think is the container baby syndrome, according to you?
So it is very real because you see, as a parent, your instinct is always safety, especially for mothers. It is always about safety. It's always about ensuring that your child does not fall down or does not need too much of attention, because your attention is also divided. And it had nothing to do with working moms or non-working moms.
Right.
The whole idea is that there is so much of work happening throughout the day because of the lockdown, because of so many issues, people falling sick, so many other things, that you just want to look at the baby being safe. Okay.
Right.
This was not only for babies, it was for toddlers. It was for children as old as 3.5 years also, that we noticed that they are being contained into some form of a container. And it is what parents usually don't think about are the side effects. That you think of the now and the here, that this is the solution that you have. But what are the long-term impact of something like this if I'm going to do it again and again? So it's okay if it's done for a day or two when, there was no help around the house and you had to do it all on your own. But when it becomes an ongoing, constant habit, that's when we need to wake up and understand that this is going to have a lot of long-term impact on the children, both on their physical development, on their emotional development, and even on, it also impacts things like ADHD, their personality. Because see, when you are contained in one place, the natural instinct of a human baby or a human child is to move, because that's what your development demands. Right. You want to move your body, you want to touch things, you want to go from place A to place B. And when you are stopped from doing that, your frustration, of course, increases. The baby becomes cranky, the baby cries more, the baby is uncomfortable because there is a restricted movement. And when it, keeps on happening for a long period of time, it kind of becomes the baby's nature to be cranky, to be, upset over the smallest things, to seek attention, etc. And this gets ingrained, because your reactions to the child also then become that kind, because you think that the baby is giving this, people label it as indisciplined. I'm having so many behavioral problems with my child, but it's something that's got to do with the way you've restrained the baby the whole day long. And that is what is causing so many of the other issues. And I think pediatricians also need to make parents aware of this. 2 years back, ECA launched a play policy. It was the first play policy in India. And we had recommended to all pediatricians to, when a child comes to you for checkup, please prescribe play. So prescribe it in your prescription notepad and write that down for the parent, that please ensure that your child plays. And when we say play means movement. Play means moving around, climbing, jumping. But I think in today's world, play is about a mobile phone in the child's hand. Play is about watching videos on the phone, rhymes on the phone. Play is about maybe sitting and doing something. That's what most families are comfortable with. They're not comfortable with a child climbing around or jumping or twirling. And these are all activities that the body demands.
Right.
They are all preparing the body for future skills. Balancing is one such skill. And that is why children twirl. They go round and round and round and round. And we don't understand it. So I always say, there should be a course in parenting, because only then are we able to help parents understand the why, the what, and the when of the growth in children.
Yeah, this is so beautifully explained. In fact, while you were talking, I remembered something called the Barefoot Movement that, started off in the US, because there was one teacher one, I think, middle school teacher who was observing the classroom from the, end of the class. And she saw a lot of children just being restless throughout the class. And of course, it looks, from an outsider perspective, it looks as if all the children are so restless and, just not focusing, and they're just not interested in what's happening. But when she actually wrote about it and became a phenomenon, it actually became viral, and she ended up creating a movement out of this, because she just said that these kids need to move, right? So one of them is picking up the water bottle, just doing something, then by propping the pencil, picking up. So it's just a matter of their need to move, because they're children, they need to move, right? So
absolutely.
yeah.
And in fact, Devi, Rabindranath Tagore has,
Right.
he's written a lot of books on children and education. And one of his quotations I remembered when you talked about this, he said, if God wanted us to wear shoes all the time, then he would have given us hooves.
Right.
And
Right.
that is something that mothers and teachers need to remember.
Right. Absolutely. Very beautiful.
Dr. Vats, I'm just curious, when you say that it's become like a constant ongoing habit, then how long is too long? Like, are there some guidelines for parents that, you should not be containing or restricting your baby for these many minutes or these many hours? So how do parents know how long is too long to contain their babies?
So if you read the American Academy guidelines, anything between 15 minutes to 25 minutes of keeping a child contained 2 to 3 times a day. So you need to be very aware about, and also I would say, rather than going onto a prescriptive time frame, I would say if your child is showing signs of unease and is refusing to sit in one place, it is a kind of a call to you that I have had it. I've had enough, because, some children are active, and some children, because I think because of the genes of both the father and the mother, some children are okay with a kind of a sedentary time. But most of the children are very, very, very active, and they will show you in their behavior, in the way they reach for you, in the way their expressions or their discomfort. I think those are the signs that we need to be very aware of. I always say that other species do parenting by instinct. And I think somewhere as humans, we have forgotten to listen to our instincts.
Yes.
Because parenting is completely instinct driven. So if you have developed that instinct of a parent, you would know when something is wrong or something is not helping your child.
Yeah. Beautiful put.
So, Dr. Vats, you've been, an early educator for, I think, decades now, and you've seen little kids, so many little kids on a, perhaps a daily basis, year after year. And I just would like to ask you, is this a thing that you're seeing, a trend that is becoming more and more visible in the children that you are interacting with now? Or has it been like, has there been a trend? Has there been like a sudden increase? How do you see the trend here?
So yes, I think it's been a calculated increase. And I think to a large extent, I blame companies that come out with these products without having disclaimers. Like when you buy something like a cigarette, you have a disclaimer. And all these products, I feel, should come with a disclaimer, whether it's the bamboo seat. The bamboo seat, if you've seen the bamboo seat, it's low, it's on the ground, and it has a very short back. So when a child sits for a long time in the bamboo seat, it props up the child's spine in a very, very harmful manner. So it is very, very important to understand that I feel these products like high chairs, bamboo seat, even the car seat should come with disclaimers, should come with some guidelines about usage, about dangers of overuse, etc. Because I feel, when we say it takes a village to raise a child, I think corporates are not taking their responsibility seriously. Everybody wants to sell things for a child, because they know a parent will always have, at that point, when a parent becomes a parent, you are actually the right person to trap in all these economical things. And so companies really play to your emotions, that if you don't have this product, then you're not a good parent, etc. So I think companies must have some amount of conscience and come out with these disclaimers, because over the years, if you notice, I think ever since high chairs and car seats were invented, it kind of somewhere told us that, wow, children can be kept occupied and safely, So I think that has led to convenience more over development. And it's a commitment you make when you agree to become a parent. And I say agree because most people in the world don't take it as a decision. It's a responsibility. The whole society wants you to become a parent. So you become a parent. No, it's a responsibility. You need to take the decision. So when you take the decision, you have to understand that there will be some years where I will have to constantly be with the child. You cannot depend on these kind of things as a convenience and, outsource that bit of your parenting to these kind of equipment because it's not done. And yes, over the years, I have noticed that I have seen mothers hold their babies lesser now. You rarely see that waist hold, how you have that mother carrying the child on the waist. That hold, I rarely see that because now the child is in the stroller, or you have these leashes, dog leash, which are now there for kid leashes. So I feel these are the things that parenting was all about. So even if you're carrying the child on your waist, I mean, look at the bond. Look at the bond, the body bond, your other bonds, it's there. But when the child is in a stroller, look at it. I mean, the child and you have no connect. The child is looking somewhere, you are looking somewhere, and the child is all alone in that alien thing.
Right.
And look at the legs of the child, because not many people think about that the legs are dangling all the time.
Yeah.
It's not good. At a very young age, you are making children dangle their legs. I mean, if you and I also were to sit for a long time on a chair, we tend to take our leg up, because keeping your legs dangling is not good.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm against there's so much furniture in schools also, because children end up sitting with, I mean, aren't those also containers?
Yeah.
Those
absolutely.
tables and chairs and the desks and benches that we have in schools, we are containing children in them for 6 hours and 8 hours, etc. So I think it's very important to understand, yes, it's a phenomena that has slowly creeped up on us. I wouldn't say there is a particular date or time when it happened. I think it has slowly creeped up on us without us realizing that, oh my God, this is what I'm doing. Because, things like tummy time. Tummy time is so important. It develops the upper torso, your neck and your spine. And if you don't give tummy time to children, they can face a lot of issues, health issues later on. And tummy time has gone out of the window because it's so easy to just put children into this playpen on their back, put them in a stroller, put them in the high chair. You're just not giving them tummy time. Tummy time is also about perspective. You see the world in a different perspective. Your entire thing changes. So I think it is something that parents need to become a little aware of. Today, it is container babies. Look around you. You may be in the midst of another syndrome if you are doing something which is unnatural.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, it may creep up on us without our knowing.
It already is, I think, right?
Yes.
So Dr. Vats, when do you typically start seeing the effects of this? Because we are actually, as you mentioned, we are actually containing our children right from infancy to when they are school going age. So when do we start seeing the effects of this syndrome, and how do we know that it's because of containing them, that, and not any other reason?
The impacts are threefold. Number one, as I said, you start seeing changes in your child's behavior. You see more frustration, you see more crankiness, you see more, and you may think it's to do with something else. Sometimes parents think it's colic or they're hungry, but it's not. You can immediately see they tend to take up their legs when you're trying to put them into a container. It's like almost they're trying to, they're trying to resist you. Yeah. When you see that kind of behavior, it's a sign that no, the baby is not enjoying you putting the child there. Right. So these are little things that you should look out for. Number two, as these children grow up, you will notice balance problems. They're not able to balance and walk properly. They tend to sit down very often. So even when this child is learning to walk, you will see that they tend to just plop down. and they're more comfortable plopping down because it's become like a comfort zone for them. Or you will also see a problem in their sitting, because when you are in a high chair, you're not using your own muscles to sit. You are being propped up. So you always have that comfort of leaning back or leaning on. So your back muscles are not strong enough. And as these children grow, you will find problems in school, because not many people have connected container babies to what happens in school. Because in school, you will have to sit up straight. In school, you'll have to sit for longer periods of time doing writing and stuff like that. And that is where these children have attention problems. They have problems to sit still, impulse control, and so much more. So it's not just about a phase. It's not just about that, okay, container babies will go through this phase. I think the impact is like, it just keeps on happening. You're like on a roller coaster, and it's never going to stop, because if you've done it too much, you are going to impact your child in many, many ways.
Right. And so in this case, and I believe there are also other, impacts that the parents can identify much earlier, right? Like I read that there is a patch that forms in the back of the heads of babies that do not have enough tummy time, like you had mentioned,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that is something that happens. And then there's, of course, the balancing thing and, the other syndromes that are much easier to identify, much easier to, watch and take action with, right? So what other, if the symptoms don't show up, at, probably during infancy or babyhood, when is it typical for them to show up, and how do you identify, this container baby syndrome, maybe even slightly later on? How can they actually correlate with this?
I think most importantly is why would a parent want to wait for a symptom to show up? It's
the parent wouldn't know to also wait, right? It's not like the parent even knows that this is going to come up. But the thing is, if it shows up later on, in the sense that it doesn't show up during infancy, obviously the parent is unaware. But it could show up, like you said, it could have a problem in their schooling years, right? So in that case, how can the parent correlate that with something that that has to do with their movement and things like that? How can
I think, what actually you're trying to say is what many parents asked us about this surveys also, that what do I do now that I have realized that I have contained my baby? Now, how do I take care? How do I undo what I have done? And I think the most important thing is to reduce and become conscious of your container time, because as I said, sometimes you have just no option. You have to, for the child's safety, like you may be traveling with the child, you have to put the child in a car seat. So become conscious immediately of the amount of time that you're putting your child in a container. B, after you put the child in the container, most dangerous is taking a child from container to container without having any freedom. Because that's what's happening to a lot of children. Throughout the day, they are spending their time in 8 different containers. So it is very important for parents to understand that please don't make your child's life on a container timetable. Number 3, what are the movement activities that you are giving to children? What is your kind of supplement throughout the day to ensure that your child gets that required movement? So if you don't have space, because today I know a lot of parents grumble about lack of space in their homes because their homes are small. In that case, how are you ensuring that your child's all the limbs, the entire torso, upper body, lower body are getting the required movement? And that happens best in things like dance, yoga, creeping and crawling activities. Very important. Basically, creeping and crawling activities are extremely important for children because, when you creep and you crawl, not only are you exercising the entire body, you see, right from the shoulders to your knees to everything is being exercised, but it's a lovely activity for both the brain hemispheres. So, which means that's why children do it with such focus. It's also called crossing the midline, which is very important in children. So when you give enough opportunities for children to do that, And I always suggest to moms that if your child is not creeping and crawling, make your child creep and crawl with a game. Put something, roll something, and then you get down on your knees and try to chase it. And you will see children learn by imitation. They have mirror neurons. So seeing you do that and seeing such a big Hulk doing that, it makes them feel happy and makes them feel, wow, I also want to do this.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important that when you have contained your baby, it's also important to give a lot more release to your baby through movement guided activities.
Right. So thank you very much, Dr. Vats, for this lovely session and for explaining
we learned
this
a lot.
Yeah, including us. And this was like a crash course in, movement capacity building and, this entire container baby syndrome thing. Right?
I was taking notes, throughout. So yes, it is definitely a course.
I think one of the most important messages that I would like to go out through your show is that let's not think that it's only for babies. Container syndrome, I think we adults are also guilty of it. And as I said, older children, we are also containing them, So I think this show of yours can open the minds of parents and educators and be more alert that let's not restrain children so much and restrict them all for our purposes. And let them listen and let us listen to their bodily needs.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we can also relate to this, right? After a whole day of sitting, I know you just feel like, going and getting up and moving. And Meghna plays the badminton. I think she knows that only too well. And I have to go for a walk if I've been, at home for a long time, just staring at the screen, just looking at the same faces. I just have to get out, So it's a very common thing.
Another thing that struck me when we were doing this survey was, have you heard of those fidget spinners?
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Fidget spinners were very. I mean, look at the word, fidget. Children fidget, okay? Children fidget. And what do we call fidgeting? When they move. When they move when they're not supposed to move. Now, to control that fidgeting, we give them a spinner, which means use this spinner, but don't fidget. So look at how, and the world went gaga over these fidget spinners.
Yes.
And, but the main need of the child was completely sidetracked.
Exactly.
That children want to fidget, but you gave them a spinner and called it a fidget spinner rather than having a child who fidgets.
Another thing that strikes me about, our discussion today is we always keep saying, even in my children's school, right? My son is in Montessori, right? And I hear the teachers say often, please sit down and listen. Please sit down and focus. And my point is, young children regulate themselves by moving. So it's so paradoxical that we're saying focus by sitting still. No, they can focus by moving actually. And I actually got into an argument with one of the teachers, one of his school teachers, saying that he is 4.5. You're telling him to sit and listen. No, he's moving. I know he's listening.
They won't. Children, and that's where teachers don't understand that there are three kinds of learners: looker, listener, and movers. And it's the movers that look and listen while moving.
Absolutely.
So I always tell that there will be at least 5 children in your class who will constantly be roaming around the class, but that doesn't mean they're not listening. They are, but they need to listen with their whole body, not just their ears.
Exactly.
Now think of those children when you contain them.
Absolutely.
Think what happens to them.
Absolutely. No, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Vats. This was so enlightening and
I'm
amazing.
So happy
I'm sure
my network didn't get disturbed.
I'm sure our discussion today is super helpful to all the parents out there, irrespective of the age of their child. And I do hope that we think twice now before containing and restricting our children and ourselves.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that's our episode for today. Thank you for listening to Big Talk About Tiny Humans, our podcast for parents and educators.
Hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to share it with your friends and family.
Listen and subscribe to Big Talk About Tiny Humans on the IVM Podcasts app, website, and all major audio platforms. We are available everywhere.
You can follow us on social media and online. Meghna is at The Therapist Mommy on Instagram and YouTube. And you can check out her website, raisingfamilyacademy.com, for a transformative course on raising a child with emotional intelligence.
And Devishobha is at KidsKintha on Twitter and Instagram. And check out kidskintha.com for in-depth articles and events on parenting and child development.
While you're at it, do also check out other great shows from the IVM Podcasts network at shows.ivmpodcasts.com. And IVM is on social media at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
We'll catch you again on our next episode.
Do you wonder why China does the things that it does? Or want to know how we could improve online privacy? Or perhaps you're thinking about how we can kickstart India's economy. If you'd like to search for the answers to such questions, check out All Things Policy, a daily public policy podcast that covers everything from employment figures to aircraft carriers. Tune in from Monday to Friday for new episodes and fresh takes.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Vaisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.